This is College Football 26 Dynasty with no transfer portal. The transfer portal is hot and heavy right now in college football, so we're going to go ahead and just take it out. As you can see there, no max transfers for team, and I also put no transfer chance as well. I've never done this before, so I want to make sure that it works, and we will check on it as we go. But I've got this Blue Jay hats on. The closest thing to a Blue Jay in college football is the Jayhawk, which I think is a Blue Jay and some kind of hawk mixed together into this mythical creature that wears shoes. So we're going to go with Kansas, see what it looks like with 3 years, best team, best conference, all the things that we look at. And we also want to see kind of how the players that are currently on teams do if they stay there for all 3 years of the video. So make sure that you like and subscribe, and let's go to the first CFP poll. Kansas is 6-2 to start. It doesn't look like we're in the top 25 yet, but a great start here. So a couple teams that are already at the top are Indiana and Texas Tech, which definitely have benefited from the transfer portal in the first couple seasons of NIL. So we'll see if they keep that up with the teams they currently have, or what happens going forward. We also have got 3 of the semifinal teams in the top 4 of our first top 25 ranking, with Miami and Oregon at 2 and 3 respectively. Let's see who Miami lost to. They lost to Florida by 2 early on in the season. They did get the win over their other big opponents. Oregon lost to Indiana just a couple weeks ago. So both teams have kind of high-end losses. Looks like Oregon's going into a bye this week. But all 4 of our real-life semifinal teams are in the top 12 for us here. Baylor's kind of the surprising team in the top 10. BYU is also up there. So we'll see if Kansas can get some wins over those teams, maybe get themselves in the top 25, as they are both in the Big 12 with us. We don't have any. Oh, UNLV is our only top 25 team that is a G5 team. We just made the changes that we said that we're going to make if we don't do any other conference realignments, which is the Pac-12 teams from 2026 are there. The Mountain West has made some adjustments. We still have yet to hear when Louisiana Tech is going to join the Sun Belt, so we're pushing that off till 2027. We won't make those changes yet. But those are our surprise teams there. Let's take a look at this Big 12, because I think that Kansas, we should be towards the top here. Yeah, okay, so we're just above Kansas State. Who do we lose to? We lost a non-conference game against Missouri by 11, which is Border War. Is that what that's called? The Border Wars, Kansas and Missouri. And then we lost to Texas Tech out on the road, who's in the top 5. We just had that loss, so we probably were in the top 25 a little earlier in the season before the CFP. But we did get the win. Okay, we just got the win over Kansas State. So why are we not in the Sunflower Showdown? Why are we not the ranked team? If we both have 2 losses and we beat them, why are we not ranked above them? Both of our other losses are ranked losses as well, so I'm not sure about that. But 4 straight games here against teams that are currently not bowl eligible. Iowa State's probably our toughest game on the road there at the end. Arizona State's not going to be easy either, but we could find our way at 10-2 and get into the Big 12 Conference Championship game with a couple of those wins and maybe some chaos here between these. Well, we don't even really need chaos between these 3 teams. If we win out, we probably have a good chance of being in the Big 12 Championship game. So let's go to the championship games and see what they look like. Okay, we're 9-3 at number 23 in the country. Let's scroll all the way down and just see. Yeah, number 23 in the country. So, or 22 in the country. Got the big win over Utah. We must have lost to Iowa State, right? Lost to Arizona. So without that loss to Arizona, we're probably in the Big 12 championship game. Neither here nor there. Let's see what is in what the conference championship games actually look like here. Shit. Okay, so we have Duke, Miami in the ACC. It's top 10. TCU ends up making it in. See, if we didn't have that loss, we would have been in there. Would have been in that game at 10-2 with a chance to go to the college football playoff. All right. Delaware makes this Conference USA Conference Championship game. We have UNLV, who is going to be our G5 representative with a win there. We very well could get 2, depending on what happens here with Tulane and USF. So we have 1. Okay. Well, yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So if TCU gets the win over Texas Tech, we probably get TCU. There's probably not a way in which Tulane gets over TCU, no matter how much they beat USF by, just because TCU already has a start, and they're beating the number 2 team in the country. That's really the only way. We could see Tulane or USF if UNLV loses. We will see Tulane or USF if UNLV loses. But I think if UNLV loses, they drop out. So we're not going to get 2 G5 teams unless something crazy going on in the top 25. We'll go back there. I know we looked at that kind of early, but we'll look here. Okay, so Ohio State is in, but not in the conference championship game. Oregon is in. Illinois was not in the conference championship game. They are in. The rest of these teams we saw, USC and Notre Dame are on the bubble here because one of these SEC teams are going to be in. So if Oklahoma wins, I think if Oklahoma wins and all the higher ranked seeds win, we have just the top 12 that we see there. If Oklahoma loses, maybe we get Ole Miss instead, who just lost a big game on the road in the Egg Bowl. The only thing that can really shake things up is TCU winning, which I think doesn't shake things up that much. It probably just knocks Notre Dame out of the playoff. So let's sim and see what the bracket looks like. Byron Brown wins the Heisman Trophy. We saw that a lot early on when we first started doing videos. Now it's kind of trailed off, but Byron Brown back as a Heisman Trophy winner, 43 touchdowns with USF. We are in the Texas Bowl against Kentucky as the favorite because we are ranked. So let's see if we can do a 10-win season in the first year of our sim. Okay, what do we look like in the bracket here? So Notre Dame did make it in. It was essentially chalk, which we saw. Oklahoma ends up beating Ole Miss. So they jumped USC and Notre Dame because they won the SEC championship game, but otherwise it's the 12 that we were looking at. So Texas Tech is the number 1 overall seed. Ohio State does drop as well because Michigan and Texas Tech won their conference championship games. Miami is the ACC champion, and then Illinois, Oregon, USC, Duke, Indiana are all non-conference champions that are in. So Illinois versus Notre Dame in the first round. Winner takes on Miami. We could get Catholics versus Convicts, Catholic versus Convicts in the Cotton Bowl in the second round. UNLV Oregon in what should have been, well, maybe not. UNLV Oregon in an alternate reality Pac-12 matchup against, and the winner goes into Texas Tech, which should also be an alternate reality Pac-12 matchup. We have definitely had all of those teams in the Pac-12 previously. That will happen in the Sugar Bowl. But the first game happens at Autzen, baby. USC versus Duke. The winner takes on Ohio State in the Orange Bowl. Oklahoma, Indiana with the winner in the Rose Bowl. We could have seen Oklahoma, Indiana if Oklahoma didn't lose to the terrible Alabama team. But that's what we get this year. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 Big Ten teams. 1 Big 12 team. 1 SEC team with Oklahoma. 2 ACC teams, Duke and Miami, and 1 half ACC, half independent team, with Notre Dame, and 1 Mountain West team with UNLV. All right, we got a couple upsets here. Notre Dame gets past Illinois by 12. They will take on Miami. We do get the Catholic versus Convicts in the Cotton Bowl. Oregon gets past UNLV, so no G5 victory in the first round. Oregon, Texas Tech in a rematch of this year's quarterfinal. What happened? Was it 23 zip Ducks in that game? I think it was. They'll face off in the Sugar Bowl in our sim. USC gets past Duke. We get an all Big Ten matchup with USC and Ohio State in the Orange Bowl, and another all Big Ten matchup at the bottom. Indiana gets past Oklahoma by 8. It's Indiana, Michigan, a rematch of the Big Ten championship game this year in the Rose Bowl. So 2, 4, 5 Big Ten teams in the second round. Only Ole Miss loses in their first round game. We got ACC versus Independent in the quarterfinal. Big 12. And that's it. So 1 Big 12 team, 1 ACC team, 1 independent team, and 5 Big 10 teams in the quarterfinal. The Big 10 has been dominating our videos lately. We win the Texas Bowl, 10-win season for Kansas in the first season here. We'll see if it's easier for them to keep that up without the transfer portal or if that will drop off. That's kind of the interesting thing. We'll take a little bit more time in the offseason here. But we get a 10-win season to start it off as Kansas. Very good start. Laquan Robinson has a pick and 4 tackles to be the Big 12 Defensive Player of the Week. Maybe that doesn't bode so well for Texas Tech. They lose 24-20 Ducks versus Miami in the semifinal. We get 3 of this year's semifinalists into our first year sim semifinal with Miami beating Notre Dame by almost 40 points, 41-7. So it's Oregon, Miami in the Peach Bowl. Oregon's in the Peach Bowl this year. I don't know if you knew. Indiana is the team that they're playing in the Peach Bowl. We'll see how that goes. Indiana versus Ohio State in the Fiesta Bowl. Ohio State wins by 5. Indiana wins by almost 30 against Michigan. So it's 3 Big Ten teams in the semifinal, which we were going to get a minimum of 2. We get 3 Big Ten teams in the semifinal, 1 ACC team, and 3 of our semifinalists from this year are in the semifinal in the first year of our sim. And it's an all Big Ten national championship. 47-17 for Oregon over Miami, 30-point victory in the Peach Bowl, 21-point victory for Indiana, 3 touchdowns over Ohio State, 49-28 in the Fiesta Bowl, 7 versus 8 in the national championship, all Big Ten, the actual Peach Bowl matchup that we will have this Friday night, which let me tell you, I'm psyched for that game. I'm nervous for that game. It's a rematch of the game earlier in the season, and we get it in the national championship game in the first year of our sim in Miami. Ducks get the first national championship, beating Indiana by 4, and hopefully what's a preview of what's to come in the Peach Bowl. They win 39-35. They are the first national champion. Of course, the Big Ten takes a big lead in the best conference with 3 teams making the semifinal, and both national championship game participants being from the conference as well as obviously the winner. That is a big finish for the Big Ten. One thing I want to point out here, we finished as a top 20 team in the final top 25 with Kansas as number 18. So what a finish there. USF did also finish as a top 12 team, even though they didn't make the playoff. They did pretty well and had a Heisman Trophy. So USF is kind of doing pretty well as well. But let's go to the transfer portal. I want to make sure this game doesn't mess up what we've got going on. Excellent. Nobody in the transfer portal. We're in the transfer portal section. I want to just make sure that you can see we're in the transfer portal section, and we are in that time of the recruiting cycle, but there's nobody in the transfer portal. So this has worked out perfectly. All the recruiting must come from high school to get in. We're not necessarily looking super hot right now as Kansas, although we were in some battles for 4 stars. Let's see if they can pull some players down here in offseason recruiting, but none of it's coming from the transfer portal. It has to come from JUCO, I guess, and then high school recruiting as well. So let's see how that happens, and we'll go to next season and just kind of look at the teams. Okay, so just to confirm, no transfers. I went to Oregon because I'm the most familiar with their roster. So, of course, Dante Moore coming back, Novosad, Keely Smith Jr. They don't have Brock Thomas, but I don't know that Brock Thomas would show up in the depth chart anyway. Davison stays, De'Aaron Hill stays. These are some freshman running backs that they brought up. No Mekhi Hughes, which is interesting, but we'll see if we can find him somewhere else. Okay, Decorian Moore, Casper, Lowe, Perry. So this all looks good here. Yeah, a lot of the offensive line would have left anyway. Okay, so it looks like it all worked out. We didn't have a bunch of players leaving in the transfer portal, and no players that are being brought in from other teams is what we can definitely confirm for the Ducks here. So this looks like it's worked so far. Now we'll see what those changes look like in our second year when we go to the CFP rankings in week 10. Maybe last season was a fluke. We're 3-5, not really in the running. Let's see if we can make a bowl game, but not going to get another top 20 finish like we did the first season, but still pretty fun. But these are what the teams look like in the top 25 here. So it is not that different than what we would usually see. Pitt generally builds up in the later years of a sim. Missouri maybe is a little bit different, but hard to say if that's because of the transfer portal or not. I was thinking that there might be better G5 teams with the transfer portal not getting in. That would be the logic in real life. Let's see if that pulls out here. So we have North Texas, the top 20. That is definitely a virtue of the non-transfer portal because North Texas has Mestamaker, who won't transfer out and generally would transfer out. They got a loss to Wyoming by 3 early in the season. Otherwise, they are looking like they're probably going to be our G5 representative. They're the only top 25 G5 team currently. Houston is kind of different. Cal is maybe a little bit different in the top 25, but nothing super crazy based on these first top 25, maybe outside of Missouri in the top 10, which is not a common thing, but we have seen them make the playoffs definitely in our video. So let's go. Actually, I want to look at the Big 12 just to see how screwed we are as Kansas. Yeah, there's no chance that we're playing in a bowl game here, I don't think. We have Utah this upcoming week. Arizona State, Baylor, and TCU on the road to end the season. I don't think we have a chance to make it back in there. I don't know if we've even beaten. Yeah, we lost by 50 to Florida. Oh, what a terrible start to the season. 50 to Florida, lost by almost 30 to Missouri, and just two really tough games to start. Even though we had them both, we got Florida to come to Kansas, and we still lost that game. So whatever. Let's sim to the conference championship games and see what's going on. A 3-9 finish for the Jayhawks, so not ideal after our first good season, but we can only go up from here. We have a couple ranked G5 teams going into the conference championship games. FIU, who generally is a ranked team at some point in our videos lately, they are number 22. Boise State is number 19 and probably the favorite to get in as the G5 representative. UNLV is a top 25 team yet again. It looks like North Texas lost a couple games at the end of the season there to lose their spot in the playoff. UTSA has a chance. I don't know how they will rate a UTSA win versus a Boise State win, but that's kind of the clicking point or the point right there to see who gets in. We have a couple interesting things going on. The Big 12 is not super interesting. Ole Miss versus Florida is kind of interesting. Oregon versus Ohio State is not interesting. Pitt versus Cal for a playoff spot, that's very interesting. Pitt number 1 in the country, that's very interesting. If Pitt wins, they're number 1 in the country. They get the first round bye. If Cal wins, they are in the college football playoff. I don't know that I've seen Cal in the college football playoff with a conference realignment setup in the first 3 years ever. I don't think that we have had that in a video unless we bring them back to the Pac-12 or we do some weird alignment. Cal on the ACC making college football playoff is definitely a unique thing in this video right now. So let's see what the top 25 looks like, see what we're missing, because I don't think number 2 is up there. Yeah, okay. USC is number 2. They are in. We didn't see Georgia in there. They are probably in, or they are in. Missouri is in, like we talked about earlier on. Notre Dame is on the border of being in. Oh, they really don't want Iowa State to win because that pushes Notre Dame out. Nebraska is the team that is out because a G5 team will take their spot there. But Notre Dame is the one that is on the edge. They were on the edge last year. They got in as a 12 seed and got a win. We'll see if they can sneak past this year, depending on what happens between Iowa State and Tech. Maybe even if they do, even if Iowa State wins, if Cal loses, maybe that gets Notre Dame their spot. We'll see how that all shakes out in the bracket. Zachariah Branch wins the Heisman for Georgia in our second year. I think he just declared for the NFL draft today, like a couple minutes ago while I was making this video. So kind of realistic. At least he stayed there. 1,500 yards, 100 receptions, 19 touchdowns. That is a Heisman winning wide receiver if I've seen one. That is cool that we get. I mean, of course, we're going to get another player that started the video with their team. That's what the whole idea is here. Okay, so who dropped out here? Because Notre Dame still gets in as the number 11 seed. Iowa State won and knocked out Texas Tech. Iowa State won and knocked out Texas Tech. Cal won. Pitt gets the number 4. Okay. I don't know how Notre Dame gets in over Texas Tech. We'll have to look at that. But we get Oregon, Boise State in the first round. The winner will take on Pitt in the second round. Oregon is our defending national champion who just lost in the Big Ten championship game to Ohio State. They will get the G5 matchup in the first round. Ole Miss and Missouri. Ole Miss was in the SEC championship game. Missouri got in as just an at-large from the SEC. All SEC matchup with the winner taking on Ohio State. Notre Dame and Cal. Cal gets in as the ACC champion, gets to host a game in Berkeley at the Farm, I think is what they call that. At the winner taking on Florida in the Fiesta Bowl. Iowa State, the Big 12 champion, will take on Georgia, with the winner taking on USC in the Peach Bowl. So we get 3 Big 10 teams, 2 ACC teams, 1 Big 12 team, 4 SEC teams after only getting 1 in the first season, are 1 independent and 1 Pac-12 team with Boise State in as the G5 representative. I want to look at what happened with Texas Tech here. I'm not exactly sure why they would have dropped 5 spots with that loss. They actually did drop 5 spots. They were number 9. They dropped all the way down to 14 with the loss. I get it that they got their third loss, who they lost? They lost to a ranked Colorado team and a ranked TCU team by a total of 8 points, and they lost by 21. That's probably why. But who did Notre Dame lose to with only 9 wins? They lost to Miami by 17. They lost to unranked Michigan State by 2. And they lost the last game of the season by 2 to USC. So it's probably because they lost, that's a quality loss to USC, but they have no top 25 wins and a 21-point loss to a non-playoff team. They make it in. I guess this game is actually somewhat realistic because Notre Dame made it in like that last year. Anyway, we're going to sim the first round of the playoff and see what happens. Okay, I think we get, all chalk except for Notre Dame kills Cal 55-23 on the road. They will take on Florida. So that's 2 straight seasons they've made it in as the last non-automatic qualifier, and they've won the first round game. So they will take on Florida in the Fiesta Bowl. Oregon wins by almost 40 over Boise State. They will take on Pitt in the Cotton Bowl. Missouri wins the home game against Ole Miss. They will take on Ohio State in the Orange Bowl. Georgia gets the win over Iowa State by 7. They will take on USC in the Peach Bowl. So we get 3 SEC teams, 3 Big Ten teams, an ACC team, and an independent in the quarterfinals. Notre Dame wins 2 straight games. They get to the Sugar Bowl against Georgia, which was last year's quarterfinal game that got delayed because of the truck bombing and all that kind of stuff. Notre Dame, Georgia in the Sugar Bowl. They both win by 3 points. Georgia by 3 in the Peach Bowl over USC. They essentially get a home game, even though they were the 7 seed in that game. Notre Dame wins by 3 over Florida, 27-24 in the Fiesta Bowl. They'll match up in that Sugar Bowl. Ohio State more than doubles up. Missouri kills them by 35 points. They will take on Pitt in the Rose Bowl. Pitt beat Oregon by 5 over the defending national champions in the Cotton Bowl. So it's 1 Big Ten team, 2 SEC teams, and 1 ACC team. If Missouri would have won, we would have gotten essentially the same thing that happened last year with 3 Big Ten teams in the semifinal, except for it would have been 3 SEC teams and the 1 ACC team. ACC has been in the semifinal in 2 straight seasons with Miami in last year. Pitt dominates Ohio State by 22 and will take on Georgia, who 2 touchdowns over Notre Dame in the Sugar Bowl. So we get Pitt and Georgia in Vegas for the national championship. The SEC gets a win here. It is an interesting conversation at the end. I mean, either team that gets a win here, it's an interesting conversation. I think the Big Ten would still be in the lead for best conference going into the final season, but it would be interesting to see what happens next year, regardless of who wins this. And Georgia ends up with the win, 55-53 over Pitt in overtime. They're the 2026 national champions. The SEC gets their first national championship of the video. Pitt, that's a pretty big, high-scoring game there in Vegas. But Georgia gets the win, so it's Oregon with the first national championship, Georgia with the second national championship, and it's probably almost neck and neck between the SEC and Big Ten for best conference going into the final season of the video. And again, we're seeing a lot of the same teams towards the top, which is probably what we were expecting from this video without the transfer portal. The same teams are at the top. We've seen Georgia, Florida, Notre Dame, Miami, Oregon, Pitt, Michigan, Duke, Oklahoma all make the playoff so far. The only teams that haven't made the playoff are Alabama, who lost in the SEC championship. No, Alabama did make it the first season. They won the SEC championship game, but they lost in the playoff as the only SEC team. TCU has not made it in, but they've been in the Big 12 championship game and have kind of floated around. And Clemson is the only one that hasn't been in a championship game or been to the playoff yet that's in the top 5. Or in the top 12, I should say. Cal is back up towards the top. USC is back up towards the top. UTSA, who we saw as one of the potential teams last year, is in the top 20. We got a couple American teams with UTSA, Tulane, and North Texas all in the top 25 in the first CFP poll. Kansas, I think we're 4-4. Let's look at the conference standings here. Yeah, 4-4, not doing so well in conference. We also lost a non-conference game as well to Louisiana Tech by 34 points. No need to look any further into the schedule. Losing by 34 at home to Louisiana Tech, that is about when you close the book on the season. So let's go to the conference championship games. Kansas State gutted it out, went 2-2 at the end of the season, or not Kansas State, and we are in the bowl season. We went 6-6, and we have qualified for a bowl. So that is good to see. The American looks like they have a for sure conference champion in, and their conference champion is actually going to be higher rated than the Big 12, which might keep the Big 12 out. And Texas Tech, I think Texas State is a little too far away from catching the Big 12, but there was some interesting things that could have happened there. We get world's largest cocktail party rematch in the SEC championship game, Nebraska and USC in the Big 10 championship game, Miami and Clemson, who's going to be in their first college football playoff. Looks like we're probably going to have Nebraska in their first college football playoff as well. And then the Big 12 champion is in. Nobody else would be in there. I thought that this would improve the G5 overall. Maybe Tulane and North Texas is a little bit of proof of that, but we have only 3 ranked G5 teams in a conference championship in our final season. Maybe UTSA is still ranked. We're going to take a look at that in the top 25. But we had like basically 2 through 5 not represented there. So Notre Dame is going to be in again. Oklahoma is going to be in again. Oregon is going to be in again. Oregon is on the run for best team in the video. Georgia is on a run for best team in the video, as there are 2 national champions so far. Both will have made the playoff all through. No, Georgia did not make the playoff in the first season. Alabama made the playoff in the first season. Oregon will be in for the 3rd straight season. So we'll see how that all shakes out. Clemson will be in them for the first time. We might get Ohio State in depending. No, Ohio State is going to be the team that's on the outside looking in, depending on what happens with Nebraska and Miami, I guess. But Ohio State really needs help from these 2 teams losing in order to get in, if any way for them to get in. Memphis is also in the top 25 out of the American, so maybe the American just got stronger because they've got 3 teams in the top 17, and there's only 1 in the Pac-12 that's in the top 25 with Texas State. So the American maybe got the most value out of this change to the transfer portal. But we'll see who can make it in the bracket. Last year's runner-up, Pitt, gets the Heisman this year with Eli Holstein. That's not a super uncommon thing. They'd really like to build up Pitt in the next couple of years of the of the Sim. So Holstein wins the Heisman with 35 touchdowns, almost 4,000 yards. We're in the Pop-Tart Bowl, I thought I saw. Yeah, we're in the Pop-Tart Bowl against Kansas State. This is the stupidity of modern college football. Why are we playing our rival in a bowl game at the end of the season? Both unranked teams playing in what is supposed to be, the second premier bowl outside of the college football playoff. It's Pop-Tart Bowl and Cheez-It Bowl are supposed to be the premier bowls outside of the college football playoff, and we are playing a rivalry game in the Pop-Tart Bowl. Maybe it's just for views, but that's what we get there after our 6-6 season. They're only 8-4, so it's not really that good for them either. Let's look at what our bracket looks like here. Okay, so Texas Tech gets the Big 12 bid, North Texas gets the American bid, and Ohio State did stay in, so that means Nebraska fell out, and Miami stayed in with the win over Clemson in the ACC championship game. So we have Georgia as our number 1 overall seed. They will take on the winner of Clemson and Florida. Could be a rematch for probably the 3rd time this season between Florida and Georgia after they match up in the SEC championship game and obviously had a rivalry game earlier in the season. Oklahoma's in for the 2nd time. They will take on 2 teams that are in for the 2nd time as well, Miami and Texas Tech, facing off in the first round of the playoff in Miami. Oregon and North Texas will face off, and the winner will take on Notre Dame in the Fiesta Bowl. Notre Dame is our 1 undefeated team. Yep, they're 12-0. They're the 1 undefeated team, and we'll take on the winner of Oregon. And Oregon gets their 2nd straight season where they play the G5 representative after beating Boise State last year at home. USC and Ohio State in an all Big Ten matchup with the winner taking on Alabama in the Peach Bowl. What is on the line here? Oregon and Georgia are our 2 national champions. They're looking to be best team in the video. There's a couple things that have to go on. We'll get closer to that in the semifinal. We have SEC and Big Ten in a battle for best conference in the video. The SEC has 1, 2, 3, 4 teams in. The Big Ten has 1, 2, 3 teams in. So we'll see how that all shakes out. The ACC also is in a battle for that if they can get a national championship here, although they only have 2 teams in and both are in the first round. Those are the things that we're looking at. Can anybody else make a boost to the top, or is Oregon or Georgia going to take the best team in the video? We lost the Pop-Tart Bowl, so we get 1 bowl win and 1 bowl loss in our 3-year sim. I think not terrible because the first year for Kansas was really good. Miami gets the win by almost 30 over Texas Tech. They will take on Oklahoma. This was never actually a BCS championship, right? This was just, or was it? No, 2002 was Miami Ohio State, 2001 was Miami, Nebraska. So anyway, new matchup in the Rose Bowl between Miami and Oklahoma. We get a third matchup of the year between Georgia and Florida in the Sugar Bowl. Georgia has won the first two matchups, it looks like. So that the winner, they get the third time is a charm. Let's see who ends up getting the win there in the Sugar Bowl. Oregon gets past North Texas, doubling them up 34-17. So the drive is still alive for both Oregon and Georgia to get their second national championship of the video, but Oregon has to play undefeated Notre Dame in the Fiesta Bowl. Ohio State wins 49-14 over USC. They will take on Alabama in the Peach Bowl. So we have two teams from the Big Ten and four teams from the SEC in the quarterfinal, as well as Miami from the ACC and Notre Dame as an independent. Georgia goes down in pursuit of their second national championship. They lose by 7 to Florida. I think, we're going to look back, but I think Florida won the third one. The two first games against Georgia, they lost, and they win the third one, the one that matters, to get to the semifinal, where they will take on Oklahoma, which I think was like the 2007 BCS National Championship game, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe that was with Ohio State too, but Oklahoma and Florida, I know, at some point played in a BCS National Championship game. Oklahoma won by 22 over Miami, so we've got two SEC teams and two Big Ten teams in the semifinal. Oregon snuck past Notre Dame by 1. They get into the Cotton Bowl. Ohio State gets past Alabama, doubling them up in the Peach Bowl. So Ohio State's in their second straight semifinal. Oregon's in their second semifinal. Oregon has a national championship. Oklahoma and Florida have yet to be there. We're going to get the Big Ten and the SEC in the national championship for best conference in the video, and we could potentially be getting, if Oregon gets to the national championship, they will be the best team in the video. They're probably already the best team in the video because Ohio State didn't make the first play. Yeah, Oregon is the best team in the video by virtue of the win over Notre Dame, but we still have to pick the best conference in the video. That will happen in the national championship. And we get Ohio State, Florida in the national championship game. The Ducks go down by 5. After clinching the best team in the video, they decide to give up for the rest of the video. They lose by 5 to Ohio State in the Cotton Bowl. Florida crushes Oklahoma by 3 touchdowns, 49-28 in the Orange Bowl. So it's Florida, Ohio State in New Orleans for the national championship, for the best conference in the video. This may have been the 2007 national championship. It's either 2007 or 2008. I know that one of them was Florida, Oklahoma. One of them was Florida, Ohio State. Florida is playing all the hits this year for this national championship. And Florida actually did win the original matchup. So they went 2-1, 2 out of 3 against Georgia this season. 51-48, they lost the SEC championship game, but then, of course, get the victory in the playoff, which propels them to the national championship game against Ohio State. But in the end, it is Ohio State by 18. They are the 2027 national champions after winning in New Orleans. So that means the Big Ten is the best conference in the video for probably the 3rd or 4th straight time. They've been dominating our videos lately, even with realignments, whatever it is. The Big Ten seems to come out on top. The Ducks get the best team in the video, which they've won a couple times over the last couple of weeks, and that is what College Football 26 looks like if you don't allow any transfers in Dynasty mode.